I think the whole thing was a big moment, unprecedented, really, when you think about all these European leaders came here, seven that were there and that included the head of NATO and the head of the EU, and they all said the same thing, which is this: after 3 years of sort of deadlock and no talks and no change in circumstances, this is the first time where there seems to be some movement.
What's up, YouTube? My name is Ralph, and welcome to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the meeting between President Trump and Zelensky yesterday, going over some reactions after that. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's get into it.
Now, look, this is a complicated war. There's no doubt about it. I mean, this has been going on for 3.5 years. A lot of people have died. A lot of territories exchanged back and forth. So it's not an easy thing to unwind. But nothing was happening on this war. Literally, the only option that we were given under the previous administration was continue to fund Ukraine for however much they need, for however long it takes. And now you have people actually talking about pathways towards ending it. Now, it's going to take a little bit more work and a little bit more time, but we are making progress. It's not me saying it. That is virtually every leader there today said that in front of the cameras. And they're saying it for a reason, because it's true and they're witnessing it and they've been a part of it.
All right, so there you have Mark Rubio making two good points. The first being the seven European leaders coming to this meeting, showing solidarity and unity and support for Ukraine themselves rather than simply expecting it from the United States. Uh, that I think was one of Trump's major goals, was to get Europe to take this situation seriously enough to take care of it themselves. Um, it's on the other side of the ocean. It's not our responsibility. They're not a NATO member. They're not threatening any of our borders. This is purely a European issue. Um, and look what happened. Trump now has leaders from the major European players um, taking part in these meetings, actively participating, and also actively rearming themselves. Um, Poland's been doing it for a while. Poland was able to see the writing on the wall and started increasing military spending years ago. Um, and it was kind of bogus for places like Germany and France, and the UK, maybe not the UK, but probably the UK, to kind of just sit back and live the fat life while Poland over on Russia's front door had to deal with the reality of Russia being there. That's really a positive development. I'm glad to see that.
So these European nations, and some of these are NATO countries, are they willing to put troops on the ground in Ukraine to cement this peace deal? Would that make Ukraine kind of like a NATO ally?
Well, what's being contemplated, look, any sovereign country in the world has a right to enter into security alliances with other countries. It's not just NATO. We have such alliances with South Korea. We have it with Japan. Other countries have it with each other. And so I think everyone would acknowledge, including, by the way, for the first time, the Russian side, under President Trump's sort of pressure or, a suggestion, is that, in fact, a Ukraine post-conflict has a right to enter into security agreements with other countries. And we will work with our European allies and non-European countries, by the way, to build such a security guarantee. We're working on that right now. We'll continue to work on that. And that'll be something that'll have to be in place after a peace deal, so that Ukraine can feel safe moving forward. And we're coordinating that as we speak. We're involved in the coordination of it. So, yeah, there are a number of countries that are willing to step forward and provide Ukraine security guarantees. But as the Ukrainians have said to us, and I think have said publicly, the strongest security guarantee they can come up with their future is to have a strong military moving forward. And that's the other dynamic that's changed. We're no longer giving Ukraine weapons. We're no longer giving Ukraine money. We are now selling them weapons, and European countries are paying for it through NATO.
So I just said this yesterday. Trump's entire goal this entire time hasn't been to isolate Ukraine. It's been to force other European nations to step in and support in a real way, not just this lip service, not even the minimal arms that they've been sending. If they're so concerned about Russia and what is going on with Ukraine right now, this war, then they need to be addressing it. They need to be taking that lead. We can't be the world police forever. I said this yesterday, the left, my entire life growing up, the left pissed and moaned about how we aren't the world police and we shouldn't be involved in all these other countries' affairs and this and that and every other thing. And now here they are flipping the script, saying the exact opposite. We must defend Ukraine at all costs in perpetuity. Ukraine's not even a NATO ally. We have friendly relationships with them, sure, but they're not an ally. We don't have a defense pact with them. This is the exact thing that I used to hear Democrats harp on about in the 90s and the early 2000s during the Bush presidency. And then it all suddenly got quiet when Obama started droning people across 7 nations in the Middle East and North Africa. But we don't want to talk about that. Um, but yeah, so it's about time that Europe starts bearing the weight of its own security again. It's been 70, 80 years now since World War II. Granted, we had to come in and get them all online. It seems like they've figured out how to play nicely together and cooperate well enough that they don't need us anymore to play referee and keep them from cutting each other's throats. Because that's the history of Europe. In reality, all of these countries, like I said yesterday, they started World War One, they started World War Two. It was America that put a stop to that shit. And now it seems like they perhaps learned their lesson after the last time, and they can act like adults and function as peaceable nations. That's the thing that people hate people like to talk about how terrible a country we are for all the military engagements that we've had since World War II. Everyone seems to forget that everybody was at each other's throats all the fucking time before that. We put an end to massive, near constant wars on the European continent. They didn't do that. They didn't get together and negotiate and talk and cooperate. We forced them to do that. And now it seems they can do it on their own. So now it's time for them to do it on their own instead of relying on the American taxpayer and the American military. This is great news. This is great news.
Why you got to give these guys space to work. I mean, they have their own constituencies, okay? They have their own considerations, and you don't want to give away one side's leverage in that regard. But let me just say this about it. I think everyone understands that some of the key elements to bringing this about is Ukraine has to feel safe moving forward. In essence, they have to believe that at the end of this war, they are in a position to never get invaded again. I think what's also true, and I think it's common sense, and I don't know why it's so hard for a lot of people to understand it, is in any negotiation to bring about the end of a war or any conflict for that matter, it's going to require both sides to receive, but also to give. In essence, one side's not going to get 100% here. Each side is going to have to make some concessions. And obviously, land or where you draw those lines, where the war stops, is going to be part of that conversation. And it's not easy, and maybe it's not even fair, but it's what it takes in order to bring about an end to a war. And that's has been true in every war. The only wars that don't end that way are the ones that have unconditional surrender by one side or the other. And we're not going to see that in this conflict. So obviously the issue of that will be talked about. And the president's been very clear. In the end, what those lines look like are up to Putin and up to Zelensky and up to the Ukrainian side to decide what each of them can live with. We are going to be there to facilitate that and make that possible and make sure that both sides are talking. And by the way, President Trump is the only leader in the world, acknowledged by all the Europeans, the only leader in the world that can talk to both of them and bring them both to a meeting is Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States. He's the only one. And the fact that he's willing to do it is something that every American, including Democrats, should be happy that we have a peace president.
All right, folks. So there you've got Marco Rubio laying it on out for you. praising the president for what he's been able to get moving, and hopeful that we are finally on our way to some sort of peace agreement. Now, this fella right here, Long Live Judah on TikTok, has some very different feelings about the meeting and how it went down. Let's go ahead, take a look, see what he's got to say, and I'm going to go ahead and give my 2 cents on his 2 cents.
So American soldiers rolling out a red carpet for a Russian dictator while Russian bodyguards watch them on their hands and knees. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't piss y'all off, okay? But when Zelensky didn't wear a suit, that's what had y'all up. Okay. Well,
Okay, right off jump, who does he think usually rolls out the red carpet for foreign dignitaries? Like, does he think that their bodyguards or uh secretaries or whatever, their people, does he think that they arrive ahead of the foreign dignitary and they roll out the red carpet? And then when the foreign dignitary comes, he's guarded by security from the state that foreign dignitary is visiting? This guy doesn't even know how the simplest things are executed. When President Trump goes to another nation, especially an adversarial one, who do you think? Do you think that his Secret Service show up the day before and set all the accoutrements of political power up? Does this guy think, Long Live Judah? If you see this, does you dumbass think that the Secret Service goes over to France, Italy, when he visited Korea? Do you think that he sends the Secret Service over first and they roll out the red carpet? I'm sure Secret Service shows up ahead of time just to do security checks, but I highly doubt that they're the ones doing all the setup. And I'm damn sure that when he goes to foreign countries, it's not just foreign it's not just members of that foreign nation's security forces that are protecting him. I'm sure that he has probably his own vehicle, definitely has his own Secret Service from America. So I don't know why this guy is complaining about that. The whole suit business, to me, I get that it's disrespectful, but at the same time, it just doesn't seem like that big of a deal to me. It's more of a nothing burger to me. Um, so yeah, I don't care about that. I was never mad about that, and I'm not mad about the Trump White House following regular protocol for foreign dignitaries visiting. So there's that.
we'll circle back to that. Enjoy these clips.
We're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
These false claims of being a peacetime president are fucking crazy to me. He was just talking about how he's pissed off at Israel because he brokered some ceasefire that they immediately violated. And
I wonder if this cat is old enough to have voted for Obama. He almost certainly voted for Joe Biden and Kamala. It's just fucking hilarious because Obama's supposed to be hope and change and blah blah blah, and that man murdered people across 7 nations in North Africa and the Middle East. He committed extrajudicial murder of United States citizen. He jailed more journalists, prosecuted more journalists than all other presidencies combined. I'm pretty sure that stands to this day. So this just is mind blowing that this man is seriously gonna sit here and talk about, Trump's not a peacetime president, when the fact of the matter is that his first term was the first period in like the last 50, 60 years that we were not at war with somebody, or that rather no new wars were started. I mean, I guess we were still tied up in Afghanistan. But he's the one that brokered the end to that, and then Biden fucked that up, didn't hold to the terms of the deal, resulting in the shit show that pullout ended up being. So yeah, that being said, that we look at this second term, and we've only seen very, very limited strikes on Iran and the Houthis. I believe I'm nothing else, no other military action, kinetic military action that I'm aware of has happened, or nothing that I can recall at this time. So how you can say that he's not a peacetime president when I mean, that alone in itself makes him a peacetime president, but then beyond that, to broker the deals that he has, and to, I mean, consistently and continuously make these attempts at brokering peace deals between warring nations, is very proving of his desire for peace in the world. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. He literally seems already like he will just do all the mental gymnastics necessary to make an enemy out of the man that he hates, and we gotta stop that shit.
And within the first hour, they dropped a shit ton of bombs on Gaza, and he was very upset with Israel, and they're going to have to finish the job now because Hamas won't release the rest of the hostages, because if they release the hostages, then they won't have any bargaining chips, and then you know what that means for Hamas. And he's sitting there making excuses while the wars he's so-called ended carry on. Yet he sits in our faces in real time and acts like he's solved 6 wars and that he's done the most in 2 months for the Ukraine-Russia war than Kamala and Biden did in the last 4 years. His words. Claiming that he never discussed the ceasefire this year at all. It never came out of his mouth.
Just by saying we're not giving anything, now we're selling weapons. This is something before, I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician, not a smart man, never was. By the way, go back 40 years, he was not a smart man 40 years ago either, but now he's in particular bad. This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in, and frankly, if the right results of the election were given, if I were president, this war would have never taken place, and he would have been very happy, because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened, and the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, and the people that have been displaced and forced into other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that he was a horrible president. Whether it was the borders or this, he was just a horrible, corrupt president.
The question that was asked was, how much does Ukraine want and how much is America willing to give? And he starts off by saying, well, first of all, we're not giving anything. We're selling weapons. And then he goes on this Joe Biden.
Good. We need to stop just handing shit out to people for free. We should be getting paid for that. I'm fine with that.
Spiel, as he always does. Because currently the heat is on him. Why the fuck are you trying to federally take over D.C.? Why the fuck do you act like you're this false peacetime president that everybody loves and supports when these wars wage on regardless of your current status in America and the federal government?
Yeah, okay, so Trump is overselling some of these peace agreements, no doubt. But at the same time, this man is over here talking like peace in the Middle East is actually an attainable goal. I'm outright saying right now it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter who gets involved. The only way that region will ever know peace is if all the people disappear somehow. Or at least the people that are there and have been there for thousands of years disappear somehow. The Israelis, aka the Jews, and the people of Lebanon who are descended from, I believe, Canaanites. I might have that exact ethnic tribal group wrong. Either way, point being, genetic haplogroups have shown that these people are descended from those tribes, and you can trace back war between the peoples of that region 3,000 years. I believe the first recorded battle in history in writing comes from the region. I believe it was a Jewish text And it's like 3,000 years old. So we know these people have been killing each other for bare minimum 3 millennia, probably longer. This is a blood feud at this point. It's not even about religion. People nowadays perceive it as Islam versus Judaism and this religious rift and divide. But the reality is that these people have been murdering one another, trying to annihilate one another for, as I said, millennia. There's no stopping that. I'm not saying trying isn't commendable, but I don't see it happening. It hasn't yet, and I highly doubt it's going to anytime soon. And even if you were to remove the Israelis, that's another thing. Is like these people are freaking out about Israel, blah blah blah. But the opposing sides of Islam, Shia and Sunni, are out to murder one another too. Um, Iran wants to wipe out all those nations who are majorly of the other side of Islam from them. And there are plenty of Islamists on the other side that are full-heartedly ready to wipe out everyone that is not them. So, boo fucking who? He tried. He got the Abraham Accords taken care of. Beyond that, like I said, Israel and fucking Palestine ain't our problem. None of that shit is. Israel just serves a geopolitical purpose. That's it. Anyways.
Whoa, God, a lot of heat, a lot of heat. Eventually they're gonna bring up the Epstein files again. Joe Biden, horrible, corrupt administration. This man is a reality star that is reading a script, and there are brains behind it in the administration. That's why.
So is this man. He don't realize it, and he's not a star, but he is a propagandist reading a script with minds behind it. You got a black man here defending the guy that said poor kids are just as smart as white kids. The guy that said if you got to think about voting for me or Donald Trump, then you ain't black. Huh? Huh? Come on now.
Corner, he reverts to the script. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Obama, Democrats, leftists, lunatics. I don't know what. It's training. He did it all day, every day on The fucking Apprentice. It's just training. Why did you just suck off Putin? No deal. Had a fucking red carpet for him. Joe Biden, I don't, you get what I'm saying? It's a tactic, and we see it over and over. The world is looking at him, Putin, and Zelensky, wondering where they are in this ceasefire, where the war is. Is it going to stop? Is it going to continue? Is there going to be a land swap? Answers, right? And he goes, oh, well, we've done more than Biden. Back to the script. We've done more than Biden in the last 4 years. I don't know. Every time, like fucking clockwork. This is Donald Trump's pitiful.
Well, he has done more than Biden. And he's done more in the pursuit of peace than Obama ever did as well. He's done more in pursuit of peace than any president has since probably Jimmy Carter. But we can't acknowledge that because then you might have to give him some props, right? You gonna sit here and act like Joe Biden was even running that fucking White House when he could barely stay awake. It's absurd. This man right here, he could get everything he wanted in the world from Trump and Republicans, and he would still talk shit because he is the one brainwashed. He is the one who what do they say? What do black conservatives say? The Democratic plantation. This man's stuck on that, living it, loving it, not even realizing it.
Full attempt to dodge accountability because he's not doing shit for the war between Russia and Ukraine. He's not doing anything for these false claims of being a peacetime president.
All right, so he wants to talk about not doing shit for the war with Russia and Ukraine. I want to look at this right here. From WashingtonStand.com. Where is it? Reuters printed follow-up 14 hours later. Foreign Affairs. Right here. The British Financial Times reported in March 22, Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has been the primary international mediator. Mikhailo Podolak, a senior advisor to Zelensky, told the Financial Times that any deal would involve the troops of the Russian Federation, the troops of the Russian Federation leaving the territory of Ukraine captured since the invasion began on February 24th. Ukraine would maintain its armed forces, but would be obliged to stay outside military alliances such as NATO and refrain from hosting foreign military bases on its territory, end quote. The Times report continued, quote, Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov told reporters that neutrality for Ukraine based on the status of Austria or Sweden was a possibility. This option is really being discussed now and is one that can be considered neutral. Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, said that absolutely specific wordings were close to being agreed in the negotiations. The putative deal also included rights for the Russian language in Ukraine, where it is widely spoken through Ukrainian, though Ukrainian is the only official language. The biggest sticking point remains Russia's demand that Ukraine recognize its 2014 annexation of Crimea and the independence of two separatist statelites in the eastern Donbass border region. Ukraine was willing to compartmentalize the issue. And then right here, the next part of the article, U.S. changes war aims. Originally, NATO and the U.S. claimed that they were helping Ukraine simply so that it could retain its sovereignty and defend its territory. But U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced at an April 2022 press conference in Poland that the U.S. wants to see Russia weaken to the degree that it can't do the kinds of things that it has done in invading Ukraine, adding that with the right equipment and the right support, Ukraine could win over Russia. But logically, weakening Russia was significantly less likely to happen if the Ukraine war ended in April 2022. Pentagon officials met in mid-April in a classified meeting with 8 large defense contractors, including Raytheon Company and Lockheed Martin Corporation, for discussion on resupplying weapons to Ukraine to prepare for a longer war with Russia. Charles Freeman, part U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia, noted that from the very beginning, the solution has been obvious, which is some variant of the Austrian State Treaty of 1955, meaning a guaranteed independence in return for decent treatment of minorities inside the guaranteed state and neutrality for the guaranteed state. So right there, Russia and Ukraine were on the cusp of a deal back in 2022, and as it was reported then, and as I'm reading to you now, it was stalled. In fact, it was essentially refused through the coaxing of the Biden White House to continue the war, to weaken Russia, which is exactly what I said in my last video. The point was, as obvious to anybody that understands geopolitics, war to any real degree. It was very, very, very clear. I mean, that was essentially once it became obvious that Russia wasn't going to just steamroll through Ukraine, the first thing I said was that this is actually beneficial to us because it weakens the Russian state. They're not actually gaining anything out of this. The difference between this and I'm not talking morally, but practically, the difference between the Russian invasion of Ukraine and our invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan is that Russia is they're losing. They're losing men. Therefore, they're not gaining experience. They're losing equipment. Therefore, they're wasting more resources. Whereas on the other hand, our casualties in the Middle East were phenomenally low. The vast majority of men and women that went over there to serve came back, retained that experience, and thus strengthened our military. That is not the case with the Russian-Ukrainian war, thus making it, in fact, beneficial to us and our interests by weakening an adversary. Let's go back to Long Live Judah, see what else he's got to say.
Right. And so when he's backed into a corner, he says, if fake election 2020, if Joe Biden would have never been the president, this would have never happened. And that's why I'm not doing anything for it now. We're in August of 2025. He's still blaming Joe Biden.
What is this man talking about not doing anything for it? He has finally spurred other European nations to take the lead on the situation. That is all he ever wanted. He's been saying it since his first term that these nations need to pay their fair share in defense. You know, all these leftists want to talk about how the rich should be taxed and yada, 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 and everyone should have to pay their fair share in taxes. But then when it comes to foreign nations, we're just supposed to subsidize them all day, and it's totally unnecessary for them to cover their fair share of defense. It's wild, and it's just more contradiction. Everything with these people is a fucking contradiction. But yeah, that's Trump. That's all Trump has wanted, was for these other nations whom we were taking the lion's share of cost to defend, to step up and pay for their own defense, to at least spend enough money on defense to make to maintain a defensible force, at least. But they haven't even been doing that. Like Germany, UK, their militaries are almost non-existent in comparison to what they once were, what our military is. And what they've done with that money is they have raised the standard of living for their people to a level that is not realistically attainable if you actually have to worry about the externalities of other nations. They've been living fat off the taxpayer dollar, not directly, but peripherally, by not having to spend money on defense themselves, and being able to invest in other projects, programs, infrastructure, and then American leftists, they scream and they throw a fit about it, and they're like, why are things so good in these Western European countries, and why don't we have these same benefits and entitlements as them, not realizing that at least a portion of that is because we're covering their fucking defense funds. And we're not even covering their defense funds. We're just sending our guys, our money, our equipment. So they don't want us to stop supporting Ukraine, but they want us to have all, they want their cake and to eat it too. And that's what it always is a refusal to face reality. But we're gonna go ahead.
He told you that Obama curated the Epstein files. What about today? What are you doing today? I don't know. Fake election. If I would have won in 2020, the war would have never.
I don't know if Obama fabricated or altered the Epstein files. We do know that he pushed, or rather, the FBI pushed the Russia hoax at his behest, even after intelligence analysts told him, reliable intelligence analysts told him, that there was no collusion and that Russia was not directly trying to help either candidate, that he in fact, Putin in fact saw both candidates as non-beneficial for the Russian state. The whole point of their interference was simply to sow chaos and dissent, which they succeeded. But it wasn't to help Trump or Hillary. As I said, it was rather just to sow division in the American populace. But after being told that, Obama insisted that they essentially find a way to make Trump the beneficiary of this interference by the Russian government. So, who really knows?
Okay.
Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt and Do you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses it because of what's happened, massive fraud all over the place. The other thing we want change are the machines. For all of the money they spend, it's approximately 10 times more expensive than paper ballots. And paper ballots are very sophisticated with the watermark paper and everything else. We would get secure elections. We'd get much faster results. The machines, I mean, they say we're going to have the results in 2 weeks. With paper ballots, you have the results that night. Most people, many countries use paper ballots. It's the most secure.
This pitiful dickhead has gone on a full left turn in front of Zelensky, a meeting that was supposed to be about how to stop the fucking invasion of his country. And he's talking about how corrupt mail-in ballots are because that's the only way Democrats win, by cheating, and the border and Joe Biden. And Zelensky has to sit there and listen to this senile motherfucker ramble and ramble and ramble, most of which is just false bullshit, while the invasion of his country.
Hold on a second. Yeah, so right here we've got Detroit ballot box stuffing caught on camera raises serious questions. August 18th, 2025. This just fucking happened. Says a narrow victory in a Detroit suburb called into question after viral video appeared to feature an incumbent council member participating in ballot harvesting. In 2024 presidential election, a victory in Michigan would have secured President Donald Trump a swing state sweep that included an endorsement from Hamtramck Mayor Amir Ghalib. Now, after 2 members of the city's all-Muslim council were charged over allegedly forging ballots, a third member was identified as the man seen in a viral video stuffing a drop box with votes days before winning by little more than 1,100 votes, of which over 800 were absentee ballots. So you can't say that this isn't happening. It is. And regardless of which side it's happening on, Mr. Trump wants to put an end to it. So you go ahead, you can be mad. You can say, "Oh, see, somebody that endorsed Donald Trump, they're the ones stuffing ballot boxes." Well, Trump don't care. He wants to put an end to it, so nobody can. Seems fair. Why would you have a problem with that? And then too, how the fuck is it that 100,000 plus, well, across the country, millions of paper ballots can be counted with results in the next day, but it takes a computer system 2 weeks to tally? I'm not saying that there's something funny going on, but where there's smoke, there's fire. You know what I mean?
Roars on. This happened today in real time.
And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad. I hate to take your time with this.
And there's the dangerous part. There's the part I've been screaming at y'all for fucking months. What they do is they manufacture this bullshit problem. A problem that the solution they're going to implement just allows them to further their agenda, right? This is their MO. This is their fucking playbook, right? And then when you call it for what it is, bullshit, un-American, unconstitutional, unlawful, profiling, inhumane, you know what I'm saying? They say, oh, we just told everybody that D.C. is filled with crime, so now you're pro-crime? You don't want us to go?
DC is filled with crime. Acting like it's not is absurd. Now, of course, you've got those numbers saying that crime has dropped some 35% in the city. However, those numbers are really kind of almost unprecedented. And a single year drop of 35% in crime is essentially unheard of, short of some sort of massive large scale crackdown like what is happening right now in DC. Beyond that, we've gotten reports that the fella or one of the fellas in charge of creating those statistics, or at least is somewhere in the chain of the creation of those statistics, was doctoring numbers, was changing charges, was undercharging, or charging differently so that they would not show up in the FBI statistics. It's still the 4th most dangerous city in the world as far as murder goes. It seems kind of wild that, it would stay that high, fourth in the nation for murders, while simultaneously all other crimes are going down. Like, so people just stopped skipping all those smaller crimes and just are going straight to murder in DC apparently. I don't know. Um anyways.
Go get out the crime. Do you see how they spin the story every fucking time? He's talking about, oh, only the Democrats can win by cheating with mail-in ballots as Texas tries to redistrict because they know what's coming in the midterms.
This dude is so dishonest. I'm so over these Democrats talking about Texas and its redistricting when they have created monstrosities in Illinois, California, what is it, Maryland, I think. There's like 5 or 6 states that are just gerrymandered to mincemeat in order to retain Democratic power. So much so that the threats of them redistricting in response to Texas's redistricting is an empty threat because they're already gerrymandered to the furthest extent that they can be. Um, people are looking at it and they're having trouble finding ways to pull more votes out of these states because they're so gerrymandered. And then they want to turn around and Newsom in California wants to talk about fighting fire with fire. And if they're going to do it, we're going to do it. You're not the one responding. You're not fighting fire with fire. Texas is fighting fire with fire. When you have 5, 6, maybe 7 states that are gerrymandered to fuck all, and then one state responds, one Republican state responds and does what you have already been doing for decades, you're not the one reacting. This man either doesn't know that or doesn't care. Either way, he's a fucking hypocrite.
Mind you, I'm very confident in this. You're curious about the strength of elections, Trump? Put a fucking microphone at the front door of the fucking White House. One by one, American by American. If it takes goddamn 2 months, everybody walk up, microphone, camera, say who you're voting for into the microphone. You watched it. I don't think it would go your way. But it's always something has to be cheating or Joe Biden, corruption. It always has to be something when they don't win or when people don't support them. Mind you, he's derailed from the point of the fucking meeting and is trying to shift everybody's mind the same way he tried to win the fucking election. Take all of this attention off of me, the Epstein files, the wars I can't stop, the money I'm taking from the poor, the lower class, the middle class, the billionaires that are getting tax cuts. All these questions, this pressure. I'm taking federal control over DC. I plan to do it to the entire nation, but don't ask me questions right now. We don't have a strong enough of a grip yet. All this pressure on him.
This man's serious, talking about we don't have a strong enough grip. Coming from the side that tried to keep us all in our homes during COVID, that separated families, that wouldn't allow people to visit their dying relatives, their child's births, the people that tried to force an untested vaccine into us, threatening us with inability to work, threatening us with the inability to take part in society. This is just disgusting, dude. The hypocrisy is disgusting.
And he says, oh, it worked for me during the campaign, Joe Biden.
And beyond that, too, these people piss and moan, have been pissing and moaning for 4 or 5 years now about January 6th, when their side was burning down entire city blocks across the country. The National Guard should have been sent in then. Billions of dollars worth of damage, 30 plus dead because of these fucking riots. Businesses lost, people's lives destroyed. Fuck that. Fuck that. Good. I'm glad that he used his power, and lawfully too, to take over DC so that he can make an example of that fucking place. For anybody out there that wants to go out and start burning and looting cities, destroying neighborhoods of people that had nothing to do with anything that they're fucking mad about. Good.
Corruption. Over and over and over again. Mind you, just recently, he rolled out the red carpet for the dictator that started the invasion.
All right, folks. So there you have crybaby ass long live Judah from TikTok, complaining as leftists tend to complain about everything that Trump and Republicans do. Like I said, my 2 cents on it is things are finally moving in the right direction. European leaders are finally stepping up to take accountability, responsibility for their own problems. And, he wants to cry about Trump going off script or off topic, and that's what the fuck he does. It seems to have served him all right so far. So I'm not gonna get too mad about it, and I'm not gonna cry for Zelensky and the fact that they weren't just all focused on him, even though they were supposed to be, because like I said, it's not our fucking war, it's not our people. We don't owe them anything. Everything that they've received from us has been a generosity, and I'm glad that we're finally getting paid for it. Long Live Judah is never going to be happy. I can already tell you he's that type of cat. But I'll go ahead and link his TikTok video in the description so that y'all can go see what else this man has on his mind. That's going to be it for today. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, later, Gators.